I'm Dennis Lyons, the editor of the Daily Item in Sunbury. We have Bill Bowman, our managing editor, and Fred Scheller, our publisher, here as well. We will be recording this and posting it on our website probably, if not tonight, by the early part of Monday. And we will write a story that'll be in tomorrow's paper and also be online. We've been doing this with all the candidates for the various state and national positions, and it's a way of just giving our readers a chance to watch for themselves. We ask pretty much the same questions of each candidate in each race, and we just take it from there. So let's get started. Can you? Probably some of our readers may not be familiar with you, Gary. So can you tell us? I know you're a dentist and a farmer. Tell us a little bit about that and how you wound up getting into this race.
Well, I've lived my entire life in Berks County, Pennsylvania, and for the past 37 years, I've been working as a dentist in my own business, and I'm a fifth-generation farmer. So my wife and three children and I own and operate a 100-acre farm in the Ole Valley here in Berks County. Today, I'm speaking to everyone from our Lebanon County office, Democratic headquarters here. I've been traveling to Schuylkill County. I was through Berks, and now I'm in Lebanon. Today, we're doing some work for the campaign. For the past 40 years working in healthcare, I've noticed a marked increase in the number of patients that I treat that can no longer afford the healthcare they need for themselves or their families. And I've also seen an astronomical increase in the prices of our prescription medications. Probably worse about this whole, the saddest thing about this whole circumstance is that we're not hearing a willingness from our representatives in Washington, D.C. to have a serious conversation about what the problems are with our healthcare system.
So let me interrupt you just 1 second, because I should have said at the beginning that you're running in the 9th congressional district race against Dan Muser, and we would like to get a sense of what got you into the race. Obviously you're a busy guy with your dental practice and your farm, so and you've not, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, run for political office before.
I ran in 2018 for this seat in the 9th district in Pennsylvania. And now I've got name recognition, and I'm the Democratic candidate for this race. Here's our dilemma. Healthcare is the biggest, agriculture is the biggest industry in the 9th district. And healthcare is the #1 issue on everybody's mind. Knowing agriculture like I do, because I have family in poultry and family in dairy, and I'm in a fruit farmer myself, and understanding our healthcare problems, these are the two biggest issues on everybody's mind. And you can't simulate the experience that I can bring to Washington, D.C. to address these issues. I've been a Pennsylvania Farm Bureau member for years. I've been a Pennsylvania Dental Association member for 37 years. I understand the issues and the legislative issues and how to fix things and how to work across the aisle to get things done. I've done it all my life. And this is why I tell my children and the people that work for me, don't bring me your problems, bring me your solutions. Well, we're not seeing people addressing real issues and offering real solutions. We're seeing a lot of partisan football and people going off into their corners, winning one for their team, but not winning issues for their constituents. And that's what I intend on doing when I get elected to represent the people of the 9th district.
Okay, well, let's start with the obviously most prevalent thing on everybody's mind, and that is the pandemic and COVID-19. And as we've asked other candidates, can you please assess for us your thoughts about the federal government's response to COVID-19, including from, in your personal perspective, the medical perspective, supplying medical professionals with needed PPE, et cetera?
Yes, well, I think people look to their elected representatives for leadership anytime there's a serious issue facing our nation. And we do like to call ourselves the United States of America, but we haven't been behaving in a united fashion for this pandemic. And we need to change that. We need to have leadership from the top down saying the same message from everybody, from our executive branch in the federal government to the governors in our state government to the health uh, industry professionals that represent various departments of health in our states and our federal government. We should have kept the pandemic task force. That was a mistake to disband that last year. We need to be investing in the NIH and the CDC to have vaccinations and therapies in the pipeline. So when a coronavirus or something else strikes, we have modalities in the works that we can ramp up and bring something quicker to the table. The fact gentlemen, that we did not have real-time testing till just now, and we still don't have this distributed throughout the United States, is the reason why this pandemic has cost 210,000 plus lives. We need to be able to know when this virus is spiking in an area and how to lock it down quickly, and having the ability to take a real-time test in the privacy of your home like we have for pregnancy tests and things like this is something that we should have had close to the marketplace, that we could have just tweaked and got up for this particular virus a lot sooner than we have it today. So I was I would I don't know if applaud is the right word, but I believe the president did the right thing in shutting down transportation with the Chinese. I don't, at the beginning of this pandemic, I know he was criticized for that by some of the people in my party. Hindsight's always 2020. We need to admit when we're wrong. And I think this is a big problem because we're not having serious conversations about what's right and what's wrong. And that was the right thing to do in hindsight. And we need to be a little bit more on the same page here, representing all of America.
Okay, Bill.
Sort of staying on the healthcare topic, Mr. Wegman. I was reading on your website. You support single payer system. You said 50 state single payer system where doctors, hospitals, and other healthcare providers compete in the private marketplace. And I like the quote that I'm not going to change how our healthcare is provided. I just want to change the way we pay for it. Can you sort of go into that a little bit more for us?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of fear mongering out in the campaign trail of people on the other side of my party trying to say that the Democrats will bring socialism to America. Well, I have no use for a socialized medical system. I don't want to own the doctor's education. We don't want to own their equipment. We don't want to own their real estate. We're going to let that all be in the private sector hands and let capitalism really work, because the way it exists now, you don't get to pick your healthcare provider. Your insurance company tells you what network you can go to and which hospitals you're in. And if you're also umbilically attached or coupled to a job, and if you change jobs and change benefit plans, you may have to change hospitals and change doctors. That's no way to run an effective health system. Every American needs to have the ability to vote with their feet and be able to say, if I don't like the service that I'm getting from this healthcare provider, I'm going to take my benefits and go over here. And the other thing that we all can agree on is that we're much better consumers when we have our own skin in the game. So Americans need to decouple healthcare from their job workplace. Maybe it made sense in the 1940s to do that, but in 21st century, we need to have everybody. We already pay 60% of our healthcare services through our payroll taxes. We can save a serious amount of money. And when I say serious, I'm talking in some studies, $500 billion a year. That's $500 billion, gentlemen, that can be saved by paying for our health care in a different manner. Right now, we're trying to navigate 7,000 different private health insurance plans. Don't listen to what I'm saying. Go to your cardiologist, go to your OBGYN, go to an orthopedic surgeon's office. First of all, they've all merged up and have a whole big group practice. And when you go to check out, there's a dozen or more people working in the front office trying to figure out what your plan is, what the copay is, what the deductible is. This is not an efficient way to manage healthcare with all the technology that we have. Ask yourself a question. Did you go to a new doctor lately? What did the front office do when you walked in? They probably handed you either a tablet or a clipboard. My great grandfather used clipboards. We have swipe card technology. Why isn't every piece of healthcare information about each of you on a swipe card in your personal possession, in your wallet, in your purse if you're a lady? That tells the doctor, the emergency care physician, whoever's taking care of you, what allergies you have, what medications you take. There are much more effective modalities to manage our healthcare here, and we need to start running with smart ideas, not with the Republican Party's way or the Democratic Party's idea. No, let's decide what are our problems with healthcare, and I can tell you they're pretty simple. The administrative costs are too excessive. We're not incentivizing preventive care, because if you have to drop a $6, $7, $8,000 deductible, you're not going to go until your pain gets too far along, and then instead of picking up cancers at stage 1 or stage 2, we're not getting them till stage 3 or stage 4. So we can be a whole lot more cost effective, save a lot of money. And think about it. What's the biggest expense in the budget of our public schools? When you're sitting on a school board, what's your biggest expense? Healthcare for all the people who work in that school system, the teachers, the administrators, the janitorial staff, people work in the cafeteria. Well, if we can cut the cost of healthcare by 30, 40%, that's reduction in your property taxes that would come back to you. So I tell people, yeah, you may spend a little bit more out of your paycheck for your healthcare, that will go towards your healthcare, but you're going to have more money in your back pocket at the end of the day with the savings that can be realized. And we may actually start to see small physician practices return to rural Pennsylvania, for people to not have to travel so far to get health care, because they won't have to navigate such an enormous system.
So that sounds a little bit more like the Bernie Sanders plan than it does the Joe Biden plan.
Yeah, let's stay away from the cult of personality, guys. Let's talk about what's a smart plan. Okay, I don't appreciate when people try to get people fired up about this person or that person. I'm willing to work with anybody on either side of the aisle who has a good idea. I just showed you a way that we could save a lot of money. Now, if you can show me a better way, these are my ears. I'm ready to listen, because my constituents don't give a hoot if it's Bernie Sanders' plan or Joe Biden's plan or Donald Trump's plan. They're tired of paying through the nose, and nobody's. What are you hearing about healthcare from Washington, gentlemen? Crickets. That's all we're hearing. They've had years to do this. 10 years we're supposed to be hearing about a great new plan. We don't hear about it. We're paying for prescription medications. We had a bill that was called HR 3 in 2019 that my opponent voted against. It would have given government the ability to negotiate prices for prescription meds, exactly like we allow the Veterans Administration to do on behalf of our vets right now. My opponent says he voted against it because it would have had an onerous penalty tax to the private pharmaceutical company if they chose not to participate in the negotiation process. Well, excuse me, I'm a dentist, okay? If you don't put teeth in legislation, it's not going to have a bite. What does Mr. Mooser not understand about monopoly? If you have a patent on a prescription drug, nobody else can develop it and sell it. And now, if nobody's restricting what you can charge for it, would you gentlemen remember what it costs to buy an EpiPen? Or the fact that we're paying 10 times more for insulin right now? Anybody on diabetes in the 9th district is paying 10 times more for insulin than people across the border in Canada. So, let's talk about smart ideas here. And we have to have antitrust legislation and bring the stakeholders. Look, we have to protect the pharmaceutical industry, that they are not subject to frivolous lawsuits. I'll have their back on that, no problem. And they need to make money with what they do. That's okay. But you've heard of remdesivir? Wasn't that the medication cocktail given to the president less than 2 weeks ago? Do you realize that costs $3,000 for one dose in a hospital? Do you know how much it costs the company to make one dose for a person? $10. They charge $3,000 at the hospital for you and me for Medicare to pay. That's our tax dollars. So you can call it somebody's name. I'm calling it highway robbery, and my constituents are sick and tired of it. And we don't have somebody representing us that's willing to fight for what's right. And that's what I'm going to do.
Okay. Fred?
A lot of discussion about mail-in voting. Could you speak a little bit about the Stop Mail-in Voter Fraud Act, what it does and where it stands?
I'm not familiar with the Stop Fraud Act, Mail-in Fraud Act. What I am familiar with is that I get my passports through our U.S. mail service. And we get our prescription medications sometimes, a lot of my senior citizen constituents, through the mail. And we pay our bills through the mail, and we get statements all the time. The mail is a very safe and secure system. And I have the utmost of faith in the 8 counties of the 9th District's Board of Elections that can do this safely, securely. And I would encourage anybody who's concerned about their health, who has a comorbidity, whether they have asthma or emphysema or severe diabetes or uncontrolled conditions, or if they're immunosuppressed, they should be using the mail to vote. There's no reason why it won't be counted. We're not going to see election results on November 3rd. We're not going to know if Gary Wegman or Dan Muser prevailed on November 3rd until each county board of elections certifies their election results. But I can tell you, it's safe. Put it in the mail. If you feel concerned, take it to your county board of elections. They'll allow you to vote in person early. You can do that now, or you can put it in the drop box at the county board of elections. But in any case, you can vote ahead of time, and therefore this empowers. I'm all for empowering our citizens to be able to exercise their right to vote. If you're a single parent and you have kids that you have to take to various events after school or after your work, or you have to shop and you have to be home to feed them at a certain time, you may not be able to get to vote by 8 o'clock. So if you could do this through the mail ahead of time, I think that's an asset for everybody. And I applaud both Republicans and Democrats in our state legislature that gave Pennsylvania Act 77 last year before this whole pandemic. Let's use it. It's a great idea, and it's surely something that we should embrace.
Okay, let's move on to one of the most significant issues that we've spoken to locally with all of our candidates, and that is broadband. It's obviously in the pandemic, it's become more clearly obvious than ever that schools and businesses and telemedicine all rely on it heavily. Your district is in some good part very rural. What can you do to help extend the broadband services to underserved areas of the state and in your district?
Well, I had 3 main concerns about broadband. One was getting it ramped up and installed. 2 was the ability for our constituents, once we had broadband access, to be able to pay for it. And 3, where were the funding streams going to come for the digitalization of Pennsylvania and the United States? Now, we did an electrification of America about 100 years ago during the recession, the Great Depression. But I just received what I think is a game changer of news about a month ago. And I don't know if you gentlemen are aware of it, but SpaceX launched, I believe, about 16 satellites, suborbital space link satellites, I believe they called them, or Starlink satellites, that are going to be able to provide internet speeds of greater or equal to upload and download to our fiber optic capabilities that we presently have via satellite. So we don't have to drill in, dig in, and wire in fiber optic to each of our rural communities. We're going to be able to get it in 2021 from SpaceX using satellite technology. Now, I have some questions. What happens if it's a real bad electrical storm or cloudy day? How's that going to affect your connectivity? So we have to ask those questions. And also, how much is it going to cost? We don't have those answers either. And will our families that are currently unemployed, will they have resources to be able to connect to that, to be able to pay to connect for that, so that they can have their classwork online? But here's the bottom line, gentlemen. We need to have broadband connectivity on par with the urban areas in our district and on par with the rest of the United States, or we're going to continue to see a brain drain of our best and brightest leaving the 9th District, leaving skid marks if they can't compete by working from home or be able to connect at home and be able to have the same access that they've seen when they were at college that people had elsewhere. So we need this in the 9th District, and we need to get it done. This is an infrastructure investment that we need to work in a bipartisan manner and get it up and running ASAP.
Bill?
Sort of to piggyback off of it, now would you consider broadband sort of an infrastructure program? I know you're proposing let me get this right, the nationwide infrastructure transportation enterprise. Would sort of broadband fit into that category in your plan?
Absolutely, because our agriculture communities need it. A lot of their tractors run off GPS and plot delineation so that their planners run automatically with satellite information. So we've got to have cellular connectivity and broadband connectivity in all our rural communities. And as I said, in that nationwide infrastructure transportation enterprise, we need a bigger infrastructure investment program than we've seen since the Eisenhower administration. And gentlemen, you're all as old or almost as old as I am. You remember in the 80s when we had to borrow money at almost 20% interest to do anything. Jerome Powell and the Fed are lending from bank to bank at less than 1%. This should be a clean infrastructure investment bill, standalone by itself. This is nonpartisan. We need to invest in living wage jobs. We have infrastructure below our cities in the 9th District, our third-class cities that support our sewage, wastewater, and our drinking water systems that are over 100 years old. They need to be switched out. This puts everybody to work: engineers, operators, truck drivers, laborers. This is a great living wage job boon for the 9th District and for America at money that is so inexpensive that we're going to definitely see a 4-to-1 return on those dollars. So why hasn't it happened already? Makes me scratch my head. I just don't get it. These people can move quickly down there when they want to do something about installing the next Supreme Court justice. Fine, have at it. That's great. But why aren't they moving quickly to put their constituents to work with good living wage jobs and fixing our infrastructure that's needed it for so long? So that's my beef.
Sort of a
Okay.
follow to that. I mean, infrastructure is something, like you said, it's a nonpartisan issue that everybody should be able to back and move quickly on. I know on your website you tout sort of what you think is an ability to work across the aisle to sort of get by this partisanship and the gridlock in Washington. Can you sort of explain, what you think, you could do as a freshman from Pennsylvania down there to sort of work either across the aisle or to make a difference?
I may be a freshman, but don't let these young looks fool you. I have some wisdom of the years here, okay? And I've had a full life. So I don't need to be beholden to the whims of my special interest lobbyists or the political elites. I can really fight for real change to bring about healthcare reform and I can fight for improvements in our public education system and bring about infrastructure investment without regard to partisan party politics. You know, what are they going to say to me? Wegman, you could lose your job. I have 2 full-time jobs already. Okay, so I'm there to represent my constituents. Now I get it. You have to play. This is not a simple game that's going on down here, but we've got to change the way it's currently structured. I really appreciated listening to Cory Booker last night. I thought he had some very intelligent comments in the Senate on the floor about how fragile we are right now and how things can come crashing apart if we don't pay attention. Listen, gentlemen, I would have never bet a wooden nickel that the Soviet Union would cease to exist when I was growing up and studying my geology and geography and everything else that we were learning. I would have never bet to see the Soviet Union cease to exist. It's been gone for 30 years. Don't think for a second that the United States of America couldn't fall apart here. We are very close to pulling apart, and we got to stop having these us versus them conversations. And my constituents are sick of the politics of division. They're tired of Democrats trying to take the president down at his every move. They're tired of Republicans who won't bring a decent bill onto the floor for a fair hearing in the Senate. They're just tired of that stuff. We pay these people way too much money to end up in gridlock and go nowhere. And we got to start changing. The only solution we have is to change the people that are there and start putting people in that are willing to actually represent the people in back home from where they come from. And I'm one of us. I'm from Pennsylvania 9th, and I'm for the Pennsylvania 9th.
You mentioned wages and the minimum wage, which is all over the board nationally. Pennsylvania, it's $7.25 an hour. New York is headed toward $15 an hour. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, I have a couple mixed, ambivalent thoughts on this. $7.65 an hour or wherever it's at is too low, and it should have never been left alone for so many years. Not in the case of a minimum wage, a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work because the minimum wage you need to survive in San Francisco or New York City is going to be different from Pottsville, Catawissa, and Berwick in our districts. So, you know, in Coltmont, I think $12 an hour would be a great minimum wage. Okay. But to get there, we're going to have to stage it in, and everybody's going to have to be prepared to pay more for their food because the people that are providing us with our agricultural services and our food are operating already at below cost pricing. So if you think for a minute that they're going to be able to pay a high school student $12 an hour to come and throw bales and not get more money for their dairy product or for their produce, we're mistaken. The farmer is broken and this model doesn't work. So we have to pay attention to whatever we do with the minimum wage. We have to watch how that affects our agricultural sector and how it's going to affect the prices of our food. Having said that, well, I'm much more concerned about ramping up living wage jobs. The minimum wage was never supposed to be a full-time job wage. If you're working a full-time job, then that's an entry-level wage, but you should be moving up to a living wage. And as I said earlier, if we can start rebuilding our bridges, rebuilding our infrastructure under our third-class cities, and getting these pipes replaced, this puts a lot of people to work with real good jobs. And you'll see that minimum wage tick up because people won't be able to find workers. They already have trouble finding workers to be able to do some of these entry-level positions.
Let's talk a little bit about energy. Tuesday night, about 24 residents attended a Montour County Commissioners meeting because they were concerned about discussions for a potential solar farm near the Montour Preserve. Obviously, clean energy is certainly a Democratic Party tenet and a program that involves wind and solar is a big part of that. There's also a lot of debate over fracking. Give me some of your views on how we should move forward with energy.
Well, as with anything, I think we have to pay attention to what the science tells us and what the real situation is and how we can deal best with that. And right now in America, we're beholden to fossil fuels. We have no other choice. We can't get our energy provided to us any other way. So, of course, we're going to want to move in the least um, detrimental manner, and natural gas appears to be the cleanest form of fossil fuel to burn at the moment. But I'm for a very progressive mixed uh, portfolio of energy. We're going to need nuclear energy to some degree where we are. We're going to need fossil fuels where we are today, but we also need to be ramping up our investment in where the puck is going. We can't always live where the puck has been. So we're going to have to look at what's happening for sustainable energy models in our future and how best to evolve to using those systems. So is solar part of that? Sure, should be. Is wind and geothermal? Absolutely. But we're going to have to incentivize people to transition. And so I would be in favor of what's called a carbon fee and dividend program where we incentivize people because the price of carbon products is going to cost them more, but they will get these monies back in a direct payment that's collected from the carbon industry. That way, it offsets these high costs, but it encourages people to move away from fuel inefficient vehicles or inefficient heating systems in their homes, or to encourage them to do more to um, weatherize their residential properties or their businesses. People move when it hits them in the pocket, and we're going to have to incentivize our American public to move in a positive direction. We've seen a market increase in the intensity of the storms in our Gulf, and everybody tells us it's due to the heat that's been built up in our ocean because that's where the carbon goes, that's where the heat goes. So this is reality. It's not a one-off. Um, and we have to leverage the technologies that exist and also invest in new technology and put the next generation of American students to work in the renewable energy sector. These are going to be great living wage jobs. I believe energy should be a national security issue. So decentralizing our energy grid, in my opinion, is a good way to prevent it from falling into hands of being hacked or taken down. So I like the idea of diversifying our energy grid and allowing some solar farms in some of our more rural areas. And for Pennsylvania, gentlemen, energy, know it or not, is very cheap in Pennsylvania compared to a lot of other states. There's a lot of um, companies that would love to invest in energy in Pennsylvania, developing solar farms. Now, hear this. Our farmers, as I stated earlier, are working at below cost margins. If they can rent some of their land to a solar panel farm, this would give them an ability to have some money in their pocket to pay their bills. What is the detriment or harm? I hate to see very high quality soils go this way. I would prefer to see land that's too stony or too hilly or too wet to be used for that purpose. But who am I to judge for our farmers if they're not making a living with what they're selling? And let's face it, with this trade effort that we're doing with the Chinese, the farmer has paid the steepest price of all the workers and people of America. They lost over $1 a bushel for their soybeans. That was the money they needed 2 years ago to pay their bills. And they don't want to live on welfare. They want to get a fair wage and fair price for their commodities. So we have to look at other ways that we can help the agricultural sector out. I think growing energy is a good idea. I'd like to talk a little bit about the hemp plant and how that could be a boon for the Pennsylvania farm community, because it's a commodity that grows really well in the temperate climate and the soils, slightly acidic soils we have here in the 9th District.
Okay, well, speaking of hemp, tell us about your thoughts about the legalization of marijuana for recreational purposes.
Well, I would definitely support, and we've already done this in Pennsylvania, medical marijuana, and we should have that legalized nationwide. And I'm talking about medical marijuana. That should be legalized nationwide. With regards to recreational marijuana, we have to have a serious conversation about the difference between gardening and chemistry. Okay, because when people talk about recreational marijuana, most people see a plant and somebody smoking something. Okay, well, that's not today's marijuana in the states that have legalized it. What happens is THC is condensed and distilled in the lab, and it's being put into edible products and other things at much higher concentrations than it exists in natural form. So if we want to legalize something that grows naturally in our soils, I'm okay with that. Okay. And I think we definitely have to take marijuana, not necessarily THC, but marijuana off of the Schedule 1 narcotics list. It doesn't belong there. Okay. But most plants can't produce more than 0.6 percent THC in the cannabis plant. But we're seeing products that are being sold with 10, 20, even up to 40% THC within the product. That's way too dangerous, and I wouldn't support putting that into the marketplace. So we have to have a conversation about that, and we don't have metrics to test whether somebody or how much somebody is inebriated if they're operating a vehicle. So there's some questions here that we need to have a serious conversation about. But as far as the marijuana that you can grow, hemp is right now restricted to only a 0.3% THC, or the crop has to be destroyed. That's foolish. Okay, we need to have this industrial hemp crop so that we can use it for 5 different modalities that are all controlled, markets that are all controlled right here in the United States. The auto industry wants the bioplastics made from the hemp fiber for its car parts, for your quarter panels, the hoods, the trunk lids. This is much stronger, much more flexible than the fossil fuel plastics, composite plastics that they're using. And guess what? It's 30% lighter. That translates into fuel efficiency. The Canadians, the Europeans are already putting it into their cars. Why are we allowing them to get ahead of us on this over a 0.3% issue? That it's just foolish. With the fiber from the hemp plant can be used for insulation. It's non-flammable. It can be used in hempcrete, which is another building product, much like prefab concrete. The construction industry wants to use it. You can grow seed from the hemp plant. That's a very nutritious feed for our cattle. The textile industry we've known about since Ben Franklin days, and you also have CBD products now that can help you with medical conditions. So there's all those markets right here in America. Doesn't matter what the Vietnamese or the Malaysians or anybody else in any other part of the world do with their markets. We can control our own destiny, and the farmer could plant 20% or so of his current crops into hemp, and then we'll see the price of soy and corn rebound because there'll be less of that in the market. I mean, it's just simple supply and demand. But here's the rub. We don't have processing facilities. The farmers, the Amish and a lot of the farmers are already trying to grow hemp, but they have nowhere to take it to make it into these injection mold pellets so that the automobile industry can use it, or others can use it for what it wants to do with the plant. So why isn't our elected representative bringing incentives for the private sector to build this stuff in the 9th District? This is a no-brainer. These are living wage jobs. This is a commodity everybody wants to use and grow. it just, we've had keystone opportunity zones in our urban sector. Let's put some economic opportunity zones in our rural sector and let the federal government give some financial incentives to get it done. We had a study on a different note from Cornell and University of Wisconsin that said Berks County and State College were two of the ideal locations for a niche market cheese and yogurt processing facility to soak up some of the excess liquid dairy that we had here in Pennsylvania. That study is over 5 years old. We don't have one of these processors here in Pennsylvania. Where's the leadership on this stuff? We sure know, I don't know if you're aware, farmers had to dump milk this summer, just pour it into their lagoons because cows aren't going to stop producing. Now, why that wasn't, somebody should have thought ahead of time and contacted the people that do condensation of milk for infant formula or just for condensed milk purposes and save that dairy product. But there's no leadership coming here for this stuff. So we should start thinking about putting people into Congress that actually understand what's going on with our North American agricultural communities. And we don't have that representation there right now. I don't see the Thomas Jeffersons in government anymore. And that's what I hope to bring with me when I get there.
Okay, let me just go one last topic here. Immigration. We know, there's especially being in the agricultural industry, there's a need for additional workers to fill labor shortages. What do you feel about immigration slash the Dreamers and DACA and providing a path to citizenship?
Thank you for that question because, yeah, H-2A visas are very necessary for our entire agricultural sector. I'm 100% behind making the DACA identified individuals in our country United States citizens as soon as possible. These people had no control of where they are. They don't know the countries, or many of them don't even speak the language from where their parents brought them here from. And they have educations. They're already part of the fabric of our nation. Let's get them employed and paying into the American economy. I mean, this makes no sense why this wasn't decided upon. The president campaigned on this in 2016, hasn't gotten it done. DACA should definitely be resolved. As far as the 11 million or more others, I'm for a conversation of how we can give them a pathway to citizenship, but I don't want to have them jump the line. They're going to have to get into the back of the line and wait their turn to do that. But again, they should be working for America, paying into the system. I'm not for a meritocracy of determining how somebody gets a visa to be able to come to America. Yes, we can target certain jobs that we need, but we need to be able to allow people from all walks of life who want to come here to have an opportunity to get here, or only, there's a lot of corruption in the rest of our world. And if we allow it to be just those who are able to get the furthest ahead from their country to here, we're going to be bringing a lot of people who are working within a corrupt system. And I don't believe that that's a good idea. I think we have to open our country to all those who want to come and have some kind of fairness to the application process.
Okay, well, I think we're going to leave it at that. I really appreciate your time, and we wish you all the luck. And again, we will be posting this interview on our website and running a story about it in tomorrow's print edition and putting it online as well. So thank you very much, and good luck.
I'd like to say one last thing.
Sure.
We need representation that will come back to us and hold live town halls for all our constituents to be able to ask their representative, what are you doing for us in Congress? Why didn't this happen? Why did you vote this way? And justify your actions to your constituents. The public wants to know, and they need to be able to question you. And as your representative, Gary Wegman, myself, I will be committed to coming back to all 8 counties within our district and answering questions on a routine basis as part of my service as a public servant and representative of the 9th District.
Okay, we will let that be the last word. Good luck, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Good
kindly,
luck.
Bill. Have a great afternoon.